Part 133. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1321. When Gao Liujun learned about this, he couldn't help but feel happy, and chatted with director Zhang. I didn't expect that our young master is still a good and affectionate brother. If I had known that this matter would be so easy to get from the young master's side, we would still have to take so many detours. Director Zhang said with a smile, yes, the eldest son can treat this illegitimate brother. It is said that the old man was furious and wanted to sue the illegitimate son, but the eldest son stopped him. However, this Gu Xiao will transfer all the property to Gu Yunzu. Gao Liujun chuckled. Gu Yunzu said that she knew her son. She had made so much money for her son. The boy was only about 20 years old. What did he need so much money for? Children have no concept of money, and we didn't let him. He gave away the shares and spent money to buy them. When the kid heard that we were going to spend hundreds of millions to buy his shares, he didn't know how successful it would be. However, Gu Yunzu, Gao Liujun and others waited until all the daylilies were retained, but only waited for Gu Xiao to say that he had transferred the stocks to his brother. Fu Nanli gave another several hundred million to Gu Xiao, and the money was only stored in Gu Xiao's bank card and was not transferred to Gu Yunzu. Fu Nanli didn't care much about money, but he still cared about shares. If Gu Xiao didn't guard these 5 points of shares and fell into the hands of someone with ill intentions, they would be used against him. For example, Director Gao, after he was removed from the board of directors, has been trying to return to the board of directors. He won't give his opponent a chance. When they suddenly heard that Gu Xiao had returned the shares at lightning speed, Gao Liujun and the others were dumbfounded. He panicked and immediately asked his subordinates to investigate. Soon there was news that Gu Xiao, the idiot, had indeed returned all the shares intact to Mr. Fu. The cigar in Gao Liujun's hand fell to the carpet. The assistant quickly picked it up. Gao Liujun angrily threw the ashtray aside. How dare I rush so hard and everything comes to nothing? Did Fu Nanli know about it early on? Did he join forces with him? That brother and Gu Yunzu are playing tricks on me. Gu Yunzu also got the news in prison. A lawyer came to her and said that Gu Xiao was unwilling to transfer the property and shares to her, and even return the shares to Fu Nanli. She was also panicked. Her son had always been under her control, but now it seemed that he couldn't. After counting all the mechanisms and getting nothing, she said hysterically, "You let Gu Xiao come to see me, let that unfilial son come to see me, I want to ask him face to face what he wants to do." He said he didn't see you. Lawyer Chen was vaguely angry. Director Gao asked him to join forces with this woman, but in the end he ended up doing things like this. This period of time was in vain, and Director Gao still didn't know how to explain it. You call him, I want to talk to him. Gu Xiao was in the car at the time, following his brother to the Fu family mansion. He was sitting in the passenger seat, followed by his brother and Wen Qiao. His brother said that Wen Qiao could hold the old man back, and he half believed it. As soon as the phone rang, he picked it up, and there was a humming roar. Gu Xiao, are you crazy? Your elbow is turned out? Who helped you get these money and shares? You didn't even give them. I actually told Fu Nanli, you are crazy, you must be crazy, both of the Fu family are cannibals, but Fu Nanli said a few nice words, and you were moved. Go to the board of directors of Zhonghuan Group and ask. Ask those big guys, who wouldn't say that Fu Nanli is very sinister and scheming. He is good to you just to appease you and to prevent you from competing with him for the family property. Gu Xiao, please wake up a little bit. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1322. Gu Yunzu wanted to yell at the end of her story. How could she have raised such a stupid son, and even paid for it after being sold? Gu Xiao just said indifferently, when you are released from prison, I will fulfill my support obligations. Just leave the money with me. You can rest assured in prison to think about your mistakes. After that, he hung up the phone directly. Gu Yunzu threw the phone in anger and kicked over the table next to her angrily. Lawyer Chen picked up the phone and left the visiting room, leaving her to go crazy inside. Soon the prison guards came and took her away. Lawyer Chen left the prison, and in the car was Gao Liujun, who looked extremely sinister. How's it going? Is there any room for change? Lawyer Chen looked guilty. Sorry, Director Gao. Gao Liujun flicked the cigarette butt directly at Lawyer Chen's face. The burning cigarette butt burned a black spot on Lawyer Chen's face, and then slid down. Lawyer Chen covered his face and said sorry repeatedly. Trash, trash. Director Gao, do you think this Fu Nanli knows that we are doing this behind his back and is deliberately being so kind to his brother to make his brother feel guilty? Is it still useful to say this now? Is it still useful? It's no use anymore. On the winding mountain road, the black Bentley is speeding in the green shade. On the road here, there are 4 rows of trees on both sides, namely camphor and plane trees. In winter, the plane trees also fall, but the camphor is very green, with intertwined leaves. In the car it's warm and feels like you're wandering in spring. The car stopped in front of a magnificent European-style villa. It had been a long time since I last came here. Today is Xiaonian, Fu Nanli thought, so as not to make the atmosphere too tense on New Year's Eve, Xiaonian would bring him here first, and if the atmosphere was not good, send him away. When he met his mother when he entered the door, Ye Mingkai glanced at Gu Xiao. Fu Nanli nodded slightly and signaled to his mother to give him some face. The person who opposed Gu Xiao's entry the most in this family was Mr. Fu. Ye Mingkai was not a hard-hearted person. She knew that Gu Xiao had been injured and had been unconscious for a long time, and she also knew that her son had always been. They all longed for brothers and sisters, so they decided to turn a blind eye. Gu Xiao was led into the side hall by Fu Nanli, where the old man was playing indoor golf. Fu Nanli glanced at Gu Xiao, who was quite smart. He walked over, nervously picked up a ball, and placed it on the tee for the old man from behind. The old man looked at the hole not far away. He didn't pay attention to the person setting the ball for him for a moment. He swung gently and the ball went into the hole smoothly. The autumn was exquisite. The servants quickly clapped their hands and applauded, and Gu Xiao couldn't help but clap his hands. Wen Qiao was sitting on the sofa in the back, inexplicably feeling the aura that a storm was coming and the whole building was filled with wind. Fu Huaiyong turned his head and saw Gu Xiao's young face. His eyelids twitched. He threw away the golf club in his hand and said in a gloomy voice, "Why are you here?" The expression on his face was ugly. Fu Nanli glanced at his mother. Ye Mingkai was willing to let go of any figure for the sake of his son. He stepped forward and said, "Dad, it's like this. Gu Xiao has returned the shares of Zhonghuan to Nanli. Well, he wanted to return all the money, but Nanli didn't accept it, only the shares. The child and his mother still have to be treated separately. He is Xian Yuan's child after all. The adult's faults should not be borne by him. On the child." Uncle Li handed over the hot towel. Fu Huaiyong wiped his hands and threw them aside. Everyone looked at him in fear. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1323. After Zhonghuan, it is Nanli who has the final say. I cannot make the decision in this family. Since it is the person Nanli wants to bring back, I can't say anything. There is probably no place for me in this family. I just want to leave. As soon as these words came out, Everyone's expressions changed. Wen Qiao quickly stood up and took the old man's arm. She has been treating the old man for nearly a year. The old man doesn't say anything, but she actually knows that they are already very close. The old man only has a son and grandson, and he is very fond of the little girl's cuteness and coquettishness. Wen Qiao, isn't that just acting like a spoiled brat? She risked her life for her brother Nanli. Grandpa, please don't be angry, okay? Fu Nanli felt like his bones were numb. The little girl had never spoken to him in this tone, and her eyes were filled with straightforward longing. Not to mention, everyone originally thought that the old man's anger was already hovering above his head. Now, as soon as the little girl said a word, the old man's face softened visibly. Fu Huayong seemed afraid of scaring her. Until then, who would believe it? Uncle Li was the person around him who could best witness the changes in the old man's mood. Even he didn't expect that one day the old man would listen to Xiao Wen's words the most. This is life. Are you helping them too? Mr. Fu feels that Wen Qiao is even more like him than his grandson, and he wants to hand over his equestrian career to this girl. Wen Qiao had an innocent and cute expression on his face. I just help them? How is that possible? I am on your side unconditionally, Grandpa. As soon as these two soft words were said, Fu Huayong felt inexplicably relieved. Wen Qiao said loudly again, Gu Xiao is so humming shameless. Fu Huayong, who came from a famous and aristocratic family, frowned when he heard what Wen Qiao said and deliberately said with a cold face, don't speak so vulgarly. Wen Qiao raised his chin with an arrogant look on his face, I'm telling the truth, Gu Xiao actually wants to enter the Fu family's door. He's too pushy. Grandpa, I'll teach him a lesson for you. After saying that, she let go of Fu Huayong's hand, walked to Gu Xiao, and grabbed Gu Xiao's shoulders. Gu Xiao cooperated and was thrown to the ground by her shoulder. Yamingkai gasped and lit up, then looked at her son worriedly. Wish yourself luck. Wen Qiao held his fist and had to beat people. Fu Huayong snorted, what are you doing? Do you understand the rules, do you understand? Wen Qiao punched Gu Xiao many times. These punches seemed heavy, but in fact they did not hurt when they landed on Gu Xiao. Gu Xiao groaned in cooperation. Finally, Fu Nanli couldn't stand it any longer, so he grabbed Wen Qiao and brought him into his arms. Wen Qiao was kicking his legs like a little bully. Uncle Li helped Gu Xiao up, and the corners of Gu Xiao's mouth were curled up. It's a bit green. Wen Qiao broke away from Fu Nanli and walked to the old man again, Grandpa, I've vented my anger on you. Are you feeling better now? Fu Huayong snorted, you use such a barbaric method to vent your anger on me? It's really ridiculous. Wen Qiao shrugged, I don't care if others laugh at me, as long as you feel happy, Grandpa. Yamingkai quickly smoothed things over, Uncle Li, why don't you bring the medicine box and give Gu Xiao some medicine? Gu Xiao said, no need, the injury is not serious. Fu Huayong was led into the dining room by Fu Nanli, Aunt Rong, what are you going to eat tonight? Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1324. Aunt Rong said happily, they are all the young master's favorite food. At dinner, there was an extra Gu Xiao at the dinner table. It can be said that Wen Qiao tried his best to distract Mr. Fu's attention. He acted coquettishly, acted cutely, and even started talking cross-talk for the first time. Yamingkai was particularly discerning. One person was teasing and the other was flattering. The atmosphere at the dinner table was quite good. Gu Xiao's meal was a bit painful, but it was already a qualitative leap. After all, the last time he came here, he was kicked out by the old man, and now he could sit down and eat together. He glanced at Wen Qiao gratefully, and Wen Qiao was still talking about crosstalk. After the meal, Fu Nanli and Wen Qiao took Gu Xiao and left the Fu family mansion. Mr. Fu left the servants alone and went up to the second floor and entered his son's study. In the car, Fu Nanli leaned lazily against the car door and glanced at Wen Qiao with his narrow auspicious eyes. "I didn't know you could do crosstalk." Wen Qiao breathed a sigh of relief. The dinner table socializing just now had exhausted all her enthusiasm. This bitch even teased her. Does she have any conscience anymore? Wen Qiao snorted and turned away. The man's slender fingers clamped her chin, and his calloused fingertips gently rubbed her tender skin. "Who did you learn this from?" Wen Qiao raised his eyebrows. "Self-taught." Fu Nanli echoed, "I've never seen you act so coquettishly before. Let's use that voice tonight, okay?" Wen Qiao bit his chin and said, "It's quite a request. Is it a kitten or a puppy? How come it has learned to bite?" Gu Xiao sat in the passenger seat, feeling a little tormented. The car stopped downstairs in the apartment. Fu Nanli opened the car door, picked him up and whispered to Lao Hu, "Send him back." Wen Qiao had no choice but to act coquettishly and cutely to satisfy a certain man's bad taste. She was so coquettish that she couldn't stand it, but the man seemed to enjoy her being so soft and cute. Finally, he said in a low voice in her ear, "It will always be like this from now on." On Jing'an Road, Gu Xiao was happily talking to his grandmother about the Fu family's big house. He was now much more cheerful, and Grandma Gu was very pleased. "Mr. Fu and Xiao Wen are both good people. Don't listen to your mother hummers in the future and get closer to them more, you know." "Yeah, I know." The phone vibrated, and Gu Xiao saw that it was from He Ziwei. His car was parked on the road outside the back door. Gu Xiao, wrapped in a thick down jacket, appeared next to a Maybach. Through the dim street lights, he saw that his brother's expression seemed colder than before. He opened the car door and went in. He told what happened today again. He Ziwei sneered, "It's worthless." Gu Xiao was stunned for a moment. In the past, his brother had always taught him to be ruthless. Once he didn't do things according to his wishes, he would dislike him in every possible way. But unlike now, he always felt that his brother really disliked being so weak and caring. Affectionate self. Didn't his brother always know that he longed for family affection? He said nothing angrily. He Ziwei had just returned from Seattle and asked him some questions as usual, among which Wen Qiao was mentioned quite frequently. Gu Xiao's brows gradually narrowed. "Brother, I told you not to cause trouble for Wen Qiao anymore. We are getting along very well now. Don't break this harmony, okay?" He Ziwei's eyes were distant, without warmth, and his voice was a little careless. "It's getting late, please go in quickly, so as not to worry your grandma. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me." Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1325. Gu Xiao got out of the car. On a winter night, the mist fell and hung in the air, and the end of the road was hidden in the mist. Snap, He Ziwei pushed open the lid of the lighter. The red flames were shining in the dark night. He held the cigarette between his slender fingers and slowly exhaled the smoke from his thin lips. If Teresa was afraid of He Ziwei before, then now that his body has been dominated by the most vicious personality, Teresa is even more terrified around him. "Sir, you. I don't live long anyway. I originally planned to train Gu Xiao to be my heir, but this kid is still too soft-tempered. Wen Qiao is really good, really good. She is so suitable. There is no one more suitable than her in the world." Teresa's face turned pale. "But will Wen Qiao do what you want?" "Even if she does, Fu Nanli won't agree." He Ziwei's handsome face was hidden in the flickering lights, and he chuckled, "I have something she has to ask for, and she can only listen to me." Teresa nodded. "It's just that I don't like her the way she is now. She's not as weak as Gu Xiao, but she is also an emotional person." People who are emotional are not good. She should be more cold and cruel. Trisha chimed in saying yes yes yes. Hizaway raised his chin slightly and looked at her, do you really agree with my point of view? Teresa gasped, of course. Hizaway smiled particularly evilly, that's why you can stay by his side for so many years, and I like you too. Teresa trembled. She knew that her husband liked her to be obedient and not talkative. She knew exactly what to ask and what not to ask, without triggering any surprises. It is worth mentioning that the movie The Incident of Mingli Middle School starring Zhou Tao achieved good box office success after it was released on Christmas. The box office on the first day was 80 million. Later, due to the fermentation of word of mouth, the tide lifted all boats, and the box office continued to rise, and finally stopped at 800 million. Discussions on the issue of youth school violence seem to be very easy to explode these days. The ending of this film is very positive and thought-provoking. Now, Zhou Tao can be said to be firmly in the top female traffic. The celebration banquet was held at the Mid-Levels Hotel in Xiaoxiangshan. It was Lu Wenzhou's property, but Zhou Tao didn't know it. After all, she didn't even know that Lu Wenzhou was the investment boss behind the movie. The crystal lights were swaying. She was wearing a red sloping shoulder dress, and her whole person was so bright that people couldn't take their eyes away. Lu Wenzhou, on the other hand, hid his merit and fame deeply and hid in a small private room on the second floor. Lu Su took a glass of champagne and took a sip. Second brother, why don't you tell me? They all said that Zhou Tao can be nominated for the Golden Lion Award for Best Actress with this movie. Even if she doesn't win the Best Actress award, she can at least win the Best Actress award. Newcomer award, this is her first time making a movie, she should know who the bull is behind it. Lu Wenzhou was non-committal. There was a knock on the door outside the small private room, and Wang Hui came in. Second master, someone wants to see you. Who? Xuechenbin, the third young master of the Xue family. Lu Wenzhou frowned slightly, and Lu Su said, the Xue family suffered a change 2 years ago, and we are on the wrong side. The third son of the Xue family, Xuechenbin, has been raising money everywhere in the past 2 years, hoping to make a comeback, but you know, these days, who can be a business tycoon, who is the little white rabbit? Everyone just said something to him, he can't get much money. Oh? Is it because you're afraid of people messing with his family or something? There is such a hidden concern. On the other hand, this third young man is a dandy. When the family business was still big, he used to just eat, drink and have fun. He is not a business material at all. He has 2 sisters above him, and they are both married, so he can revive the Xue family can only fall on him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1326. Lu Wenzhou listened with half interest. I know, then there's no need to let him in. Although he has invested in a lot of businesses, he is not interested in this kind of idiot-rich second generation and will not waste his money. The only one who can make him willing to invest money without thinking about returns is Zhou Tao. Downstairs, Zhou Tao was holding a glass of wine and chatting with the crew. Standing next to her was a man in a purple suit. There was a square towel folded on the front pocket. The man had oily hair and pink face, which was not the kind of dress she liked. After a while, Wang Hui was seen trotting down the stairs, running to the man in the purple suit, and whispering something. The man in the purple suit's face darkened. Xuechenbin's face was full of anger. Second Master Lu came to Heiken to invest in so many businesses. Why didn't he invest in my business? Is he looking down on me or something? Our Xue family used to be a famous family, but we lost power for a while. Everyone looks down on him, is the second master so realistic? Wang Hui smiled apologetically. It's not that the second master looks down on Mr. Shui, it's that our company's investment is not under the direct control of the second master. But as long as he approves it, the people in the investment department will not immediately follow it. He has been pretending to be a grandson for more than a year. For more than a year, he went everywhere begging his grandfather to sue his grandmother. Those wealthy families who used to have good relations with the Shui family are now arrogantly looking at him with their nostrils. At this point, his endurance had reached its limit, and he even started to act viciously and unreasonably, as if Lu Wenzhou had to give him the money. Wang Hui spat in his heart. Who does this grandson think their second master is? Is he asking for investment or robbing money? Why are people so arrogant these days when asking for help? He said a few words casually, dismissed Xueqinbin, and then went upstairs. The celebration banquet was lively, with many people coming and going, and it didn't end until 10:30. When Lu Wenzhou came down from upstairs, Zhou Domei's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know he was here too. Lu Wenzhou walked up to her and whispered, "Congratulations." Congratulations to her for becoming a hit at the box office, and also congratulations to her for possibly being shortlisted for the Golden Lion Award, which will bring a double bumper harvest at the box office and word of mouth. Zhou Tao nodded slightly, "Thank you." Lu Wenzhou walked to the door and paused deliberately. He was waiting for Zhou Tao. From the figure reflected in the revolving door, she could be seen taking the coat from the assistant. The two of them went out of the hotel together. It was cold and windy outside. Lu Wenzhou's Bentley was parked at the door, and Zhou Tao's car was parked just behind his car. Just when Lu Wenzhou was about to get in the car, a dark figure suddenly jumped out from the side of the revolving door. The man was so fast that he rushed towards him with such lightning speed that Wang Hui, who was blocked by the car door and was carrying his back, was stunned. Didn't react. The lights in the hotel corridor were shining, and Zhou Tao saw the cold light from the tip of the knife. "You are a knife?" Zhou Tao didn't have time to react. She wanted to go over and remind Lu Wenzhou. "Careful." She just pounced on him, and before Xueqinbin had time to retract his hand, the knife had already been inserted into Zhou Tao's back. Zhou Tao's pupils suddenly dilated. Only then did Wang Hui react. The hotel security guards and Lu Wenzhou's bodyguards immediately gathered around and restrained Xueqinbin. The knife in his hand was also taken away. Wang Hui kicked the knife away. Zhou Tao's face turned pale, and she fell into Lu Wenzhou's arms. The knife was pierced in her lower back. Sharp pain swept through her body. The man not only stabbed her, but even pulled out the knife. She could even feel her own blood flowing out. She was wearing a red skirt and a black coat, so she couldn't tell. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1327. Lu Wenzhou had never been so panicked. He held her and felt that his hands were sticky and even a little warm. He knew what it was. It was Wang Hui who shouted, "Second master, we must send Miss Zhou to the hospital as soon as possible." Lu Wenzhou hurriedly carried the person into the car. Wang Hui hurriedly dug out the car's medical kit. "Second master, we need to stop the bleeding." "Stop the bleeding?" Lu Wenzhou's brain seemed to be in shock. Because he had lost the ability to think, he could only follow Wang Hui's instructions mechanically. He took off Zhou Tao's coat. Although it was a red dress, hers was very colorful. Deep, obviously soaked in blood. He tore her skirt hard and saw her wounds, blood gushing out, and he seemed to feel her pain firsthand. She is actually a delicate girl. When they were married, they would occasionally get together at the Lu family mansion. She was always delicate and delicate in the Lu family. She must be afraid of pain. Now she was lying on his knees, humming softly, as if the pain was too severe and she couldn't hold it back. Lu Wenzo put the gauze on her wound, but he was afraid that touching her wound would hurt her. He really didn't know how much force to use with his hands, and he looked clumsy. There were beads of sweat on Zhou Tao's forehead, and her eyes were a little unfocused. It hurt so much, and she was bleeding a lot, and she couldn't hold on. She was taken to the hospital and pushed into the operating room. Lu Wenzo's hands and body were all stained with blood, and it was a dazzling red. He was worried and regretful. How could he let Zhou Tao stand in front of him at that moment? No matter what, he should be the one to shield her from the wind and rain. He obviously owed it to her, so why should she have to suffer like this on his behalf? He randomly grabbed his hair in frustration, and his forehead was stained with blood. His whole person felt depressed and messy. Wang Hui could only carefully persuade him and said a few words, but was frightened away by his sharp eyes. Now I can only wait with the second master. If I talk too much, I will be wrong. The knife pierced the lower back and abdomen, which was a very dangerous place, and Xuechenbin pulled out the knife after piercing it, which aggravated the danger. The second master must be feeling guilty. The operation lasted for 3 hours. Lu Wenzo seemed to be wandering in the edge of hell, pacing all the time, anxious and uneasy. No one dared to come forward and talk to him. As soon as the door to the operating room opened, Lu Wenzo suddenly felt resistant and did not dare to ask or step forward. The chief surgeon took off his mask and said, "Who are the patient's family members?" Lu Wenzo had no choice but to step forward. He seemed to have tinnitus and his mind was blank. The doctor opposite opened his mouth to speak, but for the moment nothing could reach his ears. After a while, someone was shaking him, and Wang Hui's excited voice came, Second Master, Miss Zhou's life is not in danger." Lu Wenzo seemed to have emerged from the turbulent sea water, suddenly getting fresh air, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and his 5 senses restored. "What did you say?" "Ms. Zhou is fine. She was sent to the hospital in time. The bleeding was stopped in time after the injury. Fortunately, the knife did not hit the vital part. She lost a lot of blood, but it is not life-threatening." Lu Wenzo supported Wang Hui. It was the fear after a false alarm. Yes, he realized that he would be scared too. In the early morning, Zhou Tao was transferred to the ward. Lu Wenzo sat beside the bed, looking at the unconscious and pale person on the bed, holding her hand and stroking it gently. "What were you thinking at that time? Can I understand that you still have me deep in your heart?" Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1328. It snowed heavily outside the window all night long. Zhou Tao woke up from the pain. Her waist and abdomen hurt so much that she felt like the tip of a knife was rolling over her whenever she moved. She hissed before she even opened her eyes. A slight sound passed through the ward. Lu Wenzo, who was sleeping lightly, immediately opened his eyes and held Zhou Tao's hand. "Are you awake?" Zhou Tao opened her eyes and saw Lu Wenzo's handsome face full of worry. It took her a while to put together the events of last night. The situation last night was chaotic and the war was chaotic. She seemed to have a fever and blocked Lu Wenzo's knife. "She is so lucky to be alive." Her voice was hoarse, and she said after a while, "I didn't mean to block it for you." Why does this sound weird? How can someone do something good and still evade it in every possible way? Lu Wenzo was afraid that she would find him offensive, so he let go of her hand and said in a clear voice, "You saved me." Zhou Tao licked the corner of her mouth. "I didn't think much about it at the time." Lu Wenzo's eyes were a little hot. "I can understand." Zhou Tao said quickly, "Don't think too much. I mainly wanted to go up and remind you. I didn't expect it to turn out like that." Lu Wenzo knew that Zhou Tao was pushing him away again. How deep was her psychological shadow? It was so deep that it seemed that she would never dare to love again in this life. He personally branded a scar deep in her heart. This scar blocked many things. It seemed like a shallow scar, but in fact it was like an abyss. After all, you are my savior. In the past, I had no excuses and no position to treat her well, but now I seem to be able to speak openly and openly. Zhou Tao waved her hand, don't take it to heart. After saying that, she had a worried look on her face, as if she had something to hide. She struggled to think of it, but the wound hurt so much that it took all her strength to just sit up, let alone walk to the bathroom. Although the VIP ward has its own bathroom, you always have to walk there. In her current state, she feels like she can't even take a step. What are you going to do? Lu Wenzhou, as straight as he was, still had some sense. Zhou Tao looked around, are there any female nurses here? What's wrong? Zhou Doergen felt a little hot, I need to go to the bathroom. Lu Wenzhou reached out and lifted the quilt. Before Zhou Tao could react, she was hugged by the man's strong arms. She was obviously a tall girl, but she always looked petite when held in a man's arms. His arms were strong and he could hold her effortlessly. He walked outside the bathroom in a few steps and gently kicked the bathroom door open with his feet. Then he put her down, feeling a little embarrassed for a moment, go up by yourself, I'm outside, just call me. Zhou Tao's face turned red and he hesitated, I know, get out quickly. There was some movement outside the ward. Lu Wenzhou walked over and took a look. It was Song Yuchen who came. Zhou Tao was stabbed at the door of the hotel. After what happened last night, it was exposed on the internet. After that, Wang Hui had full authority to handle it and had the person blocked. There is a hot search, but the matter has been spread out. Song Yuchen is an insider, so he naturally knows something. How is Zhou Tao? Wang Hui said, she was slightly injured. The doctor said she needs to rest. Mr. Song should come visit her again in a few days. Song Yuchen clicked his tongue, I don't want to disturb her, I just want to take a look at her and confirm whether she is okay. Who are you? What qualifications do you have to stop me? Don't talk about you, even your young master has no qualifications to stop me. Me, Zhou Tao and I are good friends. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1329. Wang Hui's expression was not very good, Zhou Tao is still asleep. The doctor also said not to disturb her. Since you are a good friend, you should also follow the doctor's advice. The ward is a small suite. With the door closed, the people inside can't hear the sounds outside. Lu Wenzhou listened to the entanglement between Wang Hui and Song Yuchen for a while, then turned back. Just as Zhou Tao was well, she was struggling to move to the bed when she was picked up by him again. He put her on the bed gently and picked up the insulated lunch box beside her, Aunt Jean brought it here this morning. Are you hungry? Let me feed you some. Zhou Tao leaned on the bedside and heard vague voices outside, and asked, who is outside? Before Lu Wenzhou could speak, the door was opened, and in came Wen Qiao, Lu Yuyu, and Song Yuchen who followed behind. Wang Hui knew that Wen Qiao and the others couldn't stop them, so Song Yuchen was lucky. Lu Yuyu walked over with a look of tears on her face, Dizzy, are you seriously injured? I went to bed too early last night. I didn't know you were injured until this morning. It scared me to death. Are you okay? Zhou Tao's face was pale, but she was in good spirits and comforted her that she was fine. Wen Qiao put down the fruit in his hand, sat on the edge of the bed, and asked in a low voice, did you really get hurt after blocking a knife for Lu Wenzhou? Lu Wenzhou. Sorry, the person involved is right next to you. Can you conceal the doubt in your tone? Am I not worthy? Zhou Tao looked complicated. This matter is difficult to explain in one sentence. I will tell you later. Wen Qiao added, why do you bother? Lu Wenzhou. Besides, I'm really going to get angry. Could you please take this young master as a person? Zhou Tao glanced at Lu Wenzhou, and Wen Qiao raised an eyebrow. She was not afraid of Lu Wenzhou. Even when he appeared in Yushu's nightclub and confronted her in a tense atmosphere, she was not afraid of him at all, let alone now. Zhou Tao pressed Wen Qiao's hand and signaled her not to say this in front of Lu Wenzhou. Lu Yuyu raised her eyebrows. The second master and Daisy were having some drama. Daisy not only helped him block a knife, but was also very worried about Lu Wenzhou's mood. She said she didn't want to have anything to do with Lu Wenzhou anymore, but deep down in her heart, this man still had a lot of weight. This is all fate. Looking up at Song Yuchen again, I felt silent for him for a few seconds. Song Yuchen was much more straightforward than Wen Qiao. When he came up, he asked, did you really help Lu Wenzhou block a knife? Wang Hui saw the veins on his second master's forehead twitching, and his expression was extremely sinister. Zhou Tao was a little embarrassed. This question was too direct. Even in front of Lu Wenzhou, she didn't know how to answer. Lu Wenzhou replied for him, you did block a knife for me. Song Yuchen's expression was complicated. It was now known to everyone that Zhou Tao and Lu Wenzhou were married, but now Zhou Tao actually blocked a knife for him. It was hard to say whether her feelings were still lingering. Song Yuchen's tone was a bit sour, why are you so stupid? Lu Wenzhou clenched his fist. Zhou Tao forced a smile, I didn't think so much at the time. Wen Qiao finally asked for some key information, who wants to hurt Mr. Lu? Who is so desperate for his life? Wang Hui said, Xue Chenbin, the third young man of the Xue family, wanted our second master to invest, but the second master didn't invest. He became angry and waited outside the hotel, trying to stab the second master. Miss Zhou was very brave at the time and blocked it regardless of her own safety. Lu Yuyu and Wen Qiao exchanged glances and said, second master, you have to make up for our Daisy. She even risked her life for you. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1330. Lu Wenzhou rarely solemnly said, I can. Wang Hui couldn't help but said, actually, Mingli Middle School was secretly invested by our second master. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw his second master looking at him with a sinister look, disapproving of his talkativeness. Wang Hui felt a little aggrieved. These two people kept everything in their hearts. When will they end up? Zhou Tao was a little surprised that he was the one who voted for the film, and in such a long cycle from project establishment, to casting, to filming, and finally to release, he never revealed that this film was his project. Probably I'm afraid she'll run away. Wen Qiao and Song Yuchen were dragged out by Lu Yuyu. Wen Qiao knew that Lu Yuyu wanted to give them space, but Song Yuchen didn't buy it. He argued with Lu Yuyu angrily, come out as soon as you come out. Why are you dragging me here? Lu Yuyu scratched his neck, I think it's a bit redundant for us to be there. In the ward, Lu Wenzhou peeled an orange and handed it to Zhou Tao. The orange was peeled cleanly and the meridians on it were completely torn. Zhou Tao took a piece and put it in his mouth. It was very sweet, giving the heated ward this winter a moist and sweet feeling. Mingli Middle School, thank you for choosing me. Lu Wenzhou's lips were a little dry, and his voice was hoarse and low, it's not that I chose you, but that you are the only candidate. Zhou Tao looked sideways at him, what do you mean? This project was created just for you. I was just worried that you wouldn't want to act in a movie I invested in, so I hid it. Zhou Tao said feebly, I liked that movie very much, and I was very devoted to the acting. Anyway, thank you for setting up this project. The atmosphere in the ward was in sharp contrast to the cold outside the window. For the first time, Lu Wenzo was able to talk and laugh with her without being rejected by her. She had breakfast. Because the wound was very painful, the infusion contained diazepam. After a while, she became sleepy again. After falling asleep, Lu Wenzo asked about Schwechenbin. Wang Hui said that some bodyguards had sent Schwechenbin to the police station. He committed murder deliberately and will definitely be sentenced to a felony. Lu Wenzo's face looked a little sinister. I know. Although Lu Wenzo suppressed the news, the fact that Zhou Tao had blocked a knife for her ex-husband was still a big deal and spread everywhere. People in the circle have always been shady, saying that Zhou Tao couldn't forget her old relationship, so she jumped at the opportunity and wanted to remarry her ex-husband. There are already many awards at major celebrations at the end of the year. Female stars who are familiar with each other gather together and all they talk about is Zhou Tao. A rare person like Mr. Lu, who is lucky enough to be married to him, would be willing to divorce him. Lu Wenzo must have proposed the divorce. Zhou Tao took advantage of this opportunity to make Mr. Lu feel compassion. I understand. I don't know if second young Master Lu will see that his ex-wife is a green tea. I've already defended the second young master. Even if it's green tea, it's high-grade green tea. How can a man tell that? Suddenly someone tapped the shoulder of one of the female stars, and the man smiled slightly. My second master asked me to tell you that it was not him who initiated the divorce, but Zhou Daoda's divorce. It is not Zhou Daoda who wants to save my family at the moment. Second master, but second master wants to win back Zhou Tao. Several female celebrities recognized that they were Mr. Lu's bodyguards. When they looked back, the handsome Mr. Lu was sitting behind them, staring at them with a pair of deep eyes like a cold pool, with the words master in his eyes. Not easy to mess with. You ignorant women, who allowed you to slander my ex-wife, say another word and wait for a lawyer's letter.